Hello, my name is Sophie and welcome back to my channel. Today we're doing a March reset. I appreciate it is the middle of March now, but I filmed most of this in February and I wanted to still make it a thing. As you may or may not have seen from the first clips of this video, I now have a cat. So that kind of explains why this video is late, because we literally picked her up, or adopted her, on March 1st. And life has been a little bit chaotic since then. Her name is Mango. She was adopted. She's approximately 4 years old. She is a calico cat. She is very curious. She generally does like cuddles. She just appears not to right this second. Hello. She's been very, very good. She's probably going to... Oh, no, she's settling on my lap. That's good. Oh, Lucas is calling. BRB. Brief intermission from the husband. The cat has now settled on my lap, so you can't see her. So yeah, what I've decided is part of these monthly resets is setting up my bullet journal and my book journal for the upcoming month, giving you an update on my TBR count, because I clearly have too many books on my TBR, and giving you a book haul of all the books I acquired in the previous month. So this month we're talking about February, obviously, because that's how months work. And we'll start with the time lapses of the journal, because they're very pretty. And if you want any more information, let me know, because next month I can do more of a voiceover if that's helpful. But for now, pretty time lapse. Enjoy. Then I think we should probably do the book haul next. Except the book haul has a caveat, because in January I did really well. I only bought 6 new books, and I read essentially 6 books, like 5.8 if we're being particular. That's so stupid. But February, I went on a trip to Hay-on-Wye, which is the world's first book town in... Oh, bye, Mango. She's not interested in Hay-on-Wye. Yeah, we went to the world's first book town, Hay-on-Wye in Wales. I actually won the trip in a giveaway from a book club called Chapter 25 on Instagram. Absolutely wild. But yeah, we went for 2 nights to Hay-on-Wye, and I was given some spending money, so obviously I bought some books. So let's do that book haul first, and then we'll come back for the TBR count. Now to a corner of my library that I don't know if I've ever really shown online before. This is a small bookcase that when I reorganised my library over New Year's, I decided that all of my husband's books and my Christmas books could live here. So the top shelf is all of my Christmas books. These 2 shelves are my husband's books with a frame that my mum got me for Christmas that says, "You can't buy happiness, but you can buy tap shoes." And that's kind of the same thing. I'm a tap dancer, can you tell? And then at the bottom here is where I'm storing all my new buys for this year. Is the shelf already nearly full and double stacked? Yes, but as I mentioned, I went to Hay-on-Wye. So this stack is the books that I acquired in February. So let's start with the one book that I bought before we went to Hay-on-Wye, and that is the Waterstones Special Edition of Cursebound by Sarah El Arifi. This is the sequel to Feybound that came out last year, it came out last January, and I bought it exclusively because of the sprayed edges, and then this happened, and I couldn't not have it. I will read them at some point, I just haven't read them yet, and you can't hold that against me. You absolutely can, and you really should. I'm trying to think of which order I collected all these books in, and I think my one ebook buy of the month was between buying Cursebound and going to Hay-on-Wye, and that was Deep End by Ali Hazelwood. I pre-ordered that as an ebook because there's no pretty special editions in the UK, so why would I spend money on a... Actually, there's every reason for me to spend money on a boring one, but to be honest, I'm not too fussed about getting the trophy for Deep End. I liked it, but the more I think about it, the less I kind of care. So there's that. Then we get onto the Hay-on-Wye haul, which is basically every other book I bought in February. So starting with, we have books 2 and 3 in the Killing Eve series by Luke Jennings, which are called No Tomorrow and Die For Me. I have book 1 in the Wedding Library, and I've already read it. Well, not already read it. I've read it. I hadn't read it before the wedding, but I have since read it, and I really enjoyed it. But it feels very much, these are all very short books, but it feels very much like one book, one story split into 3. So when I saw that these were both available for like £4 each, I think they were, absolutely said yes to buying both of those. Trying to be efficient and put books away whilst talking. Then in the same bookshop, this was at the Hay Cinema bookshop, we found these Wordsworth Classics books, and I'd never heard of them before, but they have beautiful covers. So I picked up this edition of Dracula by Bram Stoker. My sibling and I are planning on reading this for our little buddy read book club at some point, and I thought I'd get this pretty edition. So there's that. And then I've been desperate to read the Iliad by Homer. Not the Iliad, the Odyssey by Homer, which is like the original Greek mythology, because I've been obsessed with Epic the Musical. And if you haven't listened to it, I thoroughly recommend. It's fantastic. There are animatics on YouTube, so you can essentially watch it as a film. And it's a concept musical, but it feels finished. It's so good. But obviously, it's based on this original material. And as someone who is very much into her Greek mythology, I felt like I should probably get these at some point. I'm not sure how I'm going to engage with them, because I feel like this might be a bit much for me. But I'm going to try the audiobook. And if you have any advice for reading epic poems as someone who doesn't enjoy poetry, please let me know, because this was translated in 1616. So I'm going to give it my best shot. And as I already mentioned, I also picked up the Iliad, which is essentially what comes before the Odyssey, because this is about the Battle of Troy, and then when they hid in the horse, and the Odyssey starts at the Battle of Troy. So I think this one technically comes first. But yeah, not sure how I'm going to consume those yet, but very excited to. Then we have One of Us is Back by Karen M. McManus. This is one of the books that doesn't add to my TBR, because I listened to the whole One of Us is Lying series on Libby. I got the books from my library and I've been looking for the trophies ever since. But the only editions of these books that I've found are the ones with the black cover. I'll try and put a picture in, but personally I think that cover's really ugly. And the first 2 books I have in this series are in this white with the accent colour cover. So I wanted it to match. And I finally found one. Then the next books I bought were from the British Red Cross bookshop. And I first picked up A Song for Me and You by Mike Gale. I only realised when I got home I've already got another book by Mike Gale and I haven't read it yet. But this is one I think I've seen in charity shops a few times and I really like the sound of the premise. And when it's in a charity shop and it's £3, not going to say no. So I picked this up partially because we'd already found some other books that we were going to buy, so it made sense to get this one as well. Then we found these beautiful editions of the His Dark Materials series by Philip Pullman. And I don't know what editions they are, but they're beautiful. So we have Northern Lights in this blue colour with the bear, The Subtle Knife, which is book 2, and the Amber Spyglass book 3, which is so pretty. And those were £2 each. And we also had a reading from the Amber Spyglass at our wedding. So it's a series that both my husband and I have said that we should really read because we haven't read them yet. But we'll get there one day. Just not today. Then from an Honesty bookshop, I found this World Book Day novella by Rainbow Rowell, which is called Kindred Spirits. It was £1, and I love Rainbow Rowell, so I took a risk on that. And I love the concept of an Honesty bookshop. I just scanned a QR code and sent them some money over PayPal. Cool. And I think I've decided I want this to be my first read of 2026, which is an absolutely ridiculous decision to have already made. But I did this in 2023, where I read Galatea by Madeline Miller, which is a book that is smaller than this, both in height and in pages. And I read it on the 1st of January. It meant that my reading goal for the year was immediately above 0, and that was a really nice way to start. So if I don't read it before, I think I will be reading this on January 1st next year, because only I could plan that far in advance. My husband found a physical edition of Death Note, Another Note, The Los Angeles BB Murder Cases by Nizio Waisin, original concept by Tsugumi Oba and Takeshi Obata. I've probably murdered those names, I'm really sorry. But this is actual prose rather than graphic novel, which I think most of the Death Note books are. Or are they manga? I think they might be manga. I'm not up to date on my Death Note, but my husband bought this. He's not sure whether he wants to keep it or whether he's going to give it to his brother, but he picked this up. This doesn't add to my TBR for not obvious reasons. I don't intend to read this, so I'm not adding it to my TBR. Oh, and also the His Dark Materials series doesn't add to my TBR because we do already own them. So now I just have 2 full editions of the trilogy that I haven't read. But it doesn't add to my TBR, so take from that what you will. Then I think the bookshop was called Richard Booth's, I picked up a hardback edition of The Shadow Cabinet by Juno Dawson. I very recently read Her Majesty's Royal Coven by this author, which is the first book in this series, and I loved it. I rated it 5 stars, and for some reason they had this hardback edition in the sale section, so it was only £10, and I really wanted to read it anyway. So to get the hardback for, I think it was a penny more than the paperback, yeah, I'm absolutely picking that up. So now I need to find a hardback edition of Her Majesty's Royal Coven, so you bet I'm going to Vinted. From Gay on Y, which is Hay on Y's gay bookshop, which I absolutely adored. It was so much fun in there. I picked up a book very relevant to the last book I showed, which is Queen Bee by Juno Dawson, which is the prequel novella that comes before Her Majesty's Royal Coven. And again, I had my eye on wanting to pick this up because I had just read Her Majesty's Royal Coven, and I want to completely lose myself in this series. So hoping to read this very soon. Then I think Richard Booth's was the last shop we went in before we came home, and because we went back a second time, because when we went the first time, we didn't have time to go around the whole shop before it closed, or we had a dinner reservation or something, I can't remember. But they have a mixture of secondhand and new books. So in the secondhand section, we found some absolute bangers. Two of those were hardback editions of book 2 and 3 in the Maximum Ride series, which are Schools Out Forever and Saving the World and Other Extreme Sports. If you've been watching any of my other videos, you'll know that I'm thoroughly enjoying rereading this series this year. It's a series I read when I was a teenager, and I've been wanting to reread it for the longest time. And these obviously don't add to my TBR because I already own them. Do I need 2 editions? No, but having the hardbacks is very exciting. And again, because they were secondhand, they weren't too expensive. Can you see the joy? The joy is worth every penny that we spent on these books. And in a somewhat similar vein, we've been inadvertently collecting hardback editions of is it called Wolf Brother? I can't remember what the series is actually called. There's a series called Chronicles of Ancient Darkness by Michelle Paver, and I originally bought book 2 in the series, which is called Spirit Walker, not knowing that it was book 2 in a series. So I made it my mission to get book 1. I ended up buying it on Amazon. Then I was like, cool, I have book 1 and 2, and if I decide to read any more, I'll buy the rest. Then on a trip to an Oxfam bookstore, my husband and I found book 5 in hardback, and he was like, well, it's really cheap and you already have some of the series, so why wouldn't you buy it? So that started the journey of inadvertently collecting hardback editions of books in the Chronicles of Ancient Darkness series. So we found a copy. It's very beaten up, but that doesn't bother me. This is, I think, book 5, Outcast by Michelle Paver. I'm going to have to look up what number it is. Book 4. So I now have books 3, 4, 5, and 6 in hardback. There are 9 books total, and I've not read any of them. This is so dumb, but here we are. We found a copy of Outcast, and it's become almost like a running joke now. Will we ever read the series? I don't know, but I have book 4 in hardback now. Now we're into the final stretch. I think now is worth mentioning that my husband also bought a very pretty edition of Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. I've been telling him for ages that I think he'd really enjoy Brandon Sanderson. I've not read any Brandon Sanderson, but I've seen a lot of people talking about it online, and I think it's very much his kind of book. And basically, I want him to read it to find out whether I would like it. Is it a bit selfish? Yes, but it worked. So I bought the 3rd book in this series by Joe Abercrombie years ago. It was either in 2020 or 2014. Genuinely, I don't know which. But even though it says book 3 on the spine, I didn't realise that at the time. So I've had my eye on these books basically ever since. So now I own the whole trilogy that starts with Half a King by Joe Abercrombie, and then book 2 is Half the World, and then book 3 that I already own is Half a War. But I now have book 1 and 2, so I can actually read this series. And then a book that doesn't match any other books I have in my collection, but is an author I've heard a lot about, and I feel a little bit embarrassed being on BookTok and BookTube and not having read any of this author. I picked up the first book in the Chestnut Springs series, Flawless by Elsie Silver. I don't have anything else to say about it. There's every chance I might hate this series, so I'm trying to be sensible and not buy any more Elsie Silver until I know whether or not I like this. I'm very tempted by the Wild series at the moment, but I'm really trying to resist until I've at least read Flawless, because it would be really easy to collect books from this author because she's popular and then find out I hate them. So I've got Flawless. Perhaps this will be the year I actually read Chestnut Springs. Maybe I'll catch up on a few of these popular BookTok authors this year. And that's everything. That's everything I bought in February. I'm hoping to not have another month where I buy this many books in one go again this year. This was very much the exception because we went to the world's first book town. Fingers crossed for the rest of the year, I guess. So obviously I did some damage while we were away. So in total, I acquired 23 new books in February, except not all of them added to my TBR, because some of them, as I explained, were books that were trophy books of books that I've read as an audiobook, or new editions of books that I already own, or hardback editions of books that I already own. I just said the same thing twice. And alongside buying or acquiring 23 new books, In total, I managed to read 10 books in February. I doubled the number of books I read in January in the shortest month of the year. Make it make sense. But overall, the maths, I have a whiteboard over here where I'm tracking the numbers because I'm really boring, apparently. So in total, I read 10 books. I acquired 23 new books, even though not all of them added to my TBR. And in total, my TBR was +3 to where I left it in January. So I started the year on 399 books. In January, we were on -2, so I ended up on 397 books. And now we're back up to 440 with +3. So I'm only on +1 for the entire year. So basically, I'm now up to 440 books on my physical TBR, which I don't think is too bad considering I went to the world's first book town. It's not really the direction I wanted that number to be going in, but considering the context, I don't think it's too bad. March is a completely different scenario. As I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I got a cat, and the cat has had quite an impact on my sleep schedule. Technically, it's in a good way because she's getting me up at the same time. Well, not the same time. She's getting me up earlier in the mornings, and that is consequently making me fall asleep earlier at night. But that is also having an impact on my reading because I can't stay up till 2 a.m. reading anymore. At first, it was like, oh my God, I've got all these extra hours in the day. What am I going to do with them? And now it's like, oh my God, I feel like I have jet lag. I'm still getting used to what reading looks like in a world where I go to bed and I fall asleep 5 minutes later. So I'm not anticipating being able to read 10 books again in March, but I'm going to try my best. I'm going to at least try and finish my TBR because it is shorter this month, so I really should be able to do it. Anyway, that's everything for my March reset. Again, if you have any other ideas or anything else you'd like to see in these monthly reset videos, please do let me know. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a great day. I hope you're reading a great book, and I'll see you next time for another bookish video. Bye!